This goes on for a little while, and suddenly where Michael and Lola moved into a duplex owned by the mayor of that city, of that little town. And the mayor told Michael, I hear some rumors. Something is going to happen here tonight or tomorrow night. Save yourselves. That very night, quietly, whatever we can carry, bundles with us, in the middle of the night, we all snuck out from that apartment. And they made arrangements, Michael made arrangements with the horse and wagon to meet us like a few blocks out of our house near the area. And we all loaded his family also too. Now he lost his father already, and I missed that part. One day a truck pulls up to his house, and they were looking for eligible men to dig some ditches. And of course they found his father, and they put him on the truck with a lot of other men. And they took all these men to the forest. We lived near a forest. They took him to this forest, and they made him dig their own ditches, and then everyone was shot. So that's what happened already to his father. But the rest of the family, they all piled into that wagon, including us, and we're on our way. Now, where do you go? I mean, we didn't know, but my brother-in-law at that time found out about Bochnia, which was close by a city, a mid-sized city. Bochnia had a ghetto. Now that meant that we had to go into that ghetto if we want to go to Bochnia, but there was no other choice. And as it happened, it was a good thing that we did move out, because that night there was a raid, and everyone in the city in that town of Niepolomice was put in trucks, and they disappeared forever. It's after the wars that we found out what happened. They were all taken to the forest, and they were all shot and dumped into big ditches. So we were fortunate at that point that we did leave Bochnia, and we were thankful to this mayor of that town, because actually he saved our life. But we heard about Bochnia, and Bochnia was notorious for the atrocities that have been happening in that city. So you're going to ask, what atrocities? Every now and then, 2 or 3 trucks, dump trucks, would pull in the middle of the night into that ghetto. And they would go from house to house and pull out the children from their beds and throw them into these dump trucks. Well, if you can picture this, the screaming, the crying, the kids, and the parents. And they'd fill up 3 trucks, and then they'd pull out of there. Obviously, the parents were running behind these trucks, and the children were screaming for the parents, and the parents are screaming for the children. And these cultured people opened machine gun fire. That they had a machine gun at the end of each truck. In front of their children, they mowed down the parents. What happened to those children, we don't know. No one. But that resonated. Word got out in all the ghettos throughout Poland. Word got out that stay away from Bochnia because of these atrocities. Well, we had no choice. We knew about it, but we had no choice. Either stay or go to Bochnia. So a good thing we left, and we arrived in Bochnia. Now, Bochnia, living in a ghetto, it's hard to even explain the conditions. It was so crowded. But to give you an idea, Warsaw, the city of Warsaw had about 35% of its inhabitants were Jewish. And when they formed the ghetto in Warsaw, They took 2.5% of whole of Warsaw, and they put the 35% into it. And this gives you some idea what a ghetto looked like. Each ghetto had Jewish policemen and a police station. They were not the policemen in the sense that we are used to. They did not wear weapons. But their mission was to keep order inside the ghetto and to see to it things are in order. And if the Germans asked for 100 people to go out and dig ditches or go into a factory, it was up to them to round up these people and take them out. So when we came into this ghetto, he found out that one of the capos, a Jewish policeman, was called a capo. Not all of them were bad. Some of them were picked, just you and you become capos. Others volunteered. They lived a better life. They had better housing and better food. But he knew one capo yet from school. So he got in touch with him, and this capo made arrangements for us where to live. So my father, my mother, myself, my little brother, he put in with another 8 people in one room. There were 12 of us. Hardly any furniture. The only thing we had on the floor was a lot of straw and blankets over it. They had boxes for chairs. They had a regular table. And they also had a stove, an ice box. And they had a piece of furniture against the wall, an armoire, where you hang your coats up. And it looked kind of strange because it was a beautiful piece of furniture with all this junk. But I didn't know what it was. And there were 12 of us in one room. My sister Lola, her husband, and his mother and sisters, they all went to a different section of the ghetto in a different apartment. And this was going on. In ghetto, besides the crowded condition, any able-bodied person had to go to work. They had factories like sewing uniforms for the Wehrmacht, for the soldiers, all kind of different things, or work in other factories. You didn't get paid, but we did get rations, barely enough to get by on, but it was rations. And if you didn't work, you didn't get the rations. But children were still rationed. There were very few children anyway left. Myself, I wasn't considered a child. I never had a childhood. And there was my little brother. One day, this capo, his name was Farber, tells Michal is Michael, actually, Yiddish, tells Michael, I heard that tonight there might be a raid. Go save yourselves, do something. Now, ever since those episodes with those trucks, all these apartments and houses, they all had hiding places, like they call it bunkers, to hide their kids or themselves. And when we heard that, I found out that this big piece of furniture, that armoire, you opened up the front door and you moved the clothing aside, the back panel would slide apart, and there was a hole in the wall, room enough for 12 people to cross onto the other side of that wall, close back the front door and put back the clothing and the back panel. But it was between 2 buildings. There was only room for us to stand straight. And as it happened, the end of these buildings were closed in, so it was a good hiding place. Most other hiding places were under the ground, under the floor, like a big hole that they dug, or a cellar, or in an attic. But when these Nazis came, German shepherds, their dogs, they sniffed everybody out. And if they found you hiding, you were shot immediately on the spot. But otherwise, they would just take you in the truck. Supposedly, you were going to go in labor camps, able-bodied people. But no one ever believed them, or no one ever knew what to expect. And sure enough, we all went into this hiding place, and all night long we heard screams, shooting, dogs barking. This went up all night. Towards morning, we ventured to go back in. So I remember we opened up, pushed the panel apart, crawled out. All of us came out. We could hardly move our legs. We were so cramped. But after we straightened out and we walked outside, we couldn't believe what we saw in front of our eyes. You wouldn't believe it. Dead bodies, men, women, children, parts of bodies being torn apart by dogs. In fact, I missed that part about my cousin who went to buy, in Krakow, who went to buy flour, and this Nazi with 2 German shepherds wanted to amuse himself. So he orders those dogs to tear him apart. And there were bystanders, people looking. It was like a theater. He enjoyed himself. They tore him apart and killed him into pieces. And this is what we saw in the ghetto. Pieces of bodies laying all over the babies and mothers' arms. And it was unbelievable. And there were people going around with push carts, and they were picking up these pieces of bodies and skeletons and putting them on these push carts. They were taking them to the main square inside the ghetto. So they piled them up, and guess what? These cultured people would pour gasoline over them and light a bonfire. That was in Bochnia.